My name is Dorian. I've been a park ranger for 20 years, a guardian of the Everglades, where the whispers of the wild intertwine with the soft rustle of the mangroves. Yet on that fateful night, as I patrolled the familiar trails under the watchful gaze of a crescent moon, an entity emerged that forced me to confront the very fabric of my understanding. In the thick shadows of the cypress trees, I saw what looked like a dog, but it was something far more sinister, a grotesque specter, its eyes glinting with an unnatural light, sending chills down my spine. In that moment, everything I believed about nature crumbled. For 2 decades, I've learned to navigate each corner of this sprawling park, developing an instinctive trust in the signs the forest presents. The Everglades, a labyrinth of life, had shown me its wonders and its dangers, but never had I encountered anything like this. The creature, though it bore a canine silhouette, moved with an eerie grace, its form shifting in a way that felt wrong, unnatural. The legends I'd heard in the nearby town of Homestead, stories of mythical beasts that roamed the wetlands, began to haunt my thoughts. What if they were more than mere tales? Driven by a mix of curiosity and trepidation, I resolved to follow the creature. Each step I took felt like a descent into madness as I recorded every peculiar sound it emitted, a low growl that seemed to bend reality, as if the very air trembled with its vibrations. The soil beneath my boots revealed strange claw marks, not quite like any animal I knew, and the atmosphere thickened around me, heavy with an ominous presence that felt alive. I found myself torn between rational explanations, a mutation caused by pollution perhaps, and the unsettling notion that I had encountered something supernatural, something that challenged the very essence of the world around me. As I traversed the winding paths of the park, memories of my past intertwined with the present. I thought of my father, a man who had instilled in me a love for nature, but had also warned me of its darker side. He had often told me about the things that lurked just beyond the periphery of the light, creatures that thrived in the shadows. I had dismissed his tales as mere folklore, stories meant to keep children in line. Yet, standing there, the lines of reality blurred, and I felt the weight of his warnings pressing against my chest. The Everglades, with its sprawling wetlands and tangled roots, became a character in its own right. The air was thick with humidity, and the scent of decaying leaves mingled with the sweetness of blooming orchids, creating an intoxicating atmosphere that lured me deeper into its heart. The night sky above me was a tapestry of stars, but the darkness below felt alive, pulsating with secrets waiting to be unveiled. Just as I thought I understood the land I had devoted my life to, it seemed to mock me, revealing its mysteries only to draw me further into uncertainty. But when night fell, something inexplicable happened. As I ventured deeper into the Everglades, the shadows lengthened, and the creature's presence became a palpable weight on my chest. My heart raced, not solely from fear, but from an urgent need to understand what I was chasing. The twisted bark of the cypress trees loomed around me, and the air crackled with a tension that felt almost sentient. I was no longer merely a park ranger. I was an intruder in a realm where the ordinary laws of nature seemed to fray at the edges. Suddenly, a rustle in the underbrush snapped me from my reverie. Out stepped Sarah, a fellow ranger, her face pale and eyes wide. She had always been a confidant, a fellow guardian of these wetlands, but tonight she looked as if she had seen a ghost. "Dorian, you shouldn't be out here alone," she said, her voice trembling. "I felt it too, the presence. I heard a sound that shouldn't exist in the wild." "What did you see?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "A shape, like a dog but twisted. It was watching me, then it disappeared." Her gaze darted to the shadows as if expecting the creature to leap out at any moment. There was a tremor in her voice that betrayed her calm demeanor, and I felt a surge of urgency as I realized I wasn't the only one entangled in this mystery. "We need to find it, Sarah. It could be dangerous, but I need to know what it is. My words hung in the thick air between us, heavy with an unspoken pact. Dorian, we could call for backup. This isn't just another animal sighting, she insisted, her hands trembling at her sides. What if it's something more? Something we can't explain? I shook my head, a mix of determination and desperation coursing through me. The legends, Sarah, they're real. We have to confront this, or we'll never understand. Her eyes narrowed, and I could see the conflict swirling within her. You're not just chasing a shadow, Dorian. This could ruin everything we've worked for, the park's reputation, our jobs. I stepped closer, feeling the heat of her fear mix with my own. If we don't confront it, how can we protect what we love? What if it's a threat to the ecosystem? We owe it to the Everglades to seek the truth. The air thickened with tension, and for a moment we stood on the precipice of a decision that could alter everything. Just then, a low growl reverberated through the trees, a sound that felt like it was rising from the very depths of the earth. My pulse quickened, and Sarah's eyes widened in terror. "We should go," she murmured, backing away slowly. But as she turned, a flash of movement caught my eye. The creature, that grotesque specter, stood before us, silhouetted against the moonlight, its eyes shimmering with an otherworldly glow. "Stay close," I whispered, my instincts kicking in. "We face it together." But as we took a step forward, the creature lunged, its form shifting and undulating in a way that defied logic. I could barely comprehend what I was seeing. Instinct kicked in, and I reached for my flashlight, casting a beam of light toward the beast. What I saw froze me in place. It wasn't just a creature. It was a manifestation of the very fears and nightmares that had been whispered about in hushed tones. The legends of the park had come alive, and with them, the realization that I was no longer just the guardian of the Everglades. I was part of its enigma. As the creature snarled, Sarah and I exchanged glances, understanding that our lives were now intertwined with the fate of this land. We had to uncover the truth behind this haunting or risk losing everything we held dear. In that moment, our choices would ripple through the very fabric of the Everglades, leading us into a darkness far deeper than we had ever anticipated. As the creature snarled, I felt a chill creep down my spine, and my mind raced with the implications of what I was witnessing. The legends of the Everglades, tales I had dismissed as folklore during my training, suddenly felt all too real. I tightened, my grip on the flashlight, my heart pounding, but an unsettling thought slipped into my mind. What if this was all in my head? "Dorian!" Sarah's voice cut through my thoughts, laced with panic. She pulled me back to the present just as the creature lunged. I stumbled, and in that moment of vulnerability, a memory surged forth. I was a child again, lost in a darkened woods behind my grandmother's house, the shadows seeming to whisper my name, the wind carrying the echoes of warnings I never understood. My grandmother had spoken of spirits that guarded the land, of curses and shadows that took form in the night. I had laughed then, but now those stories hung heavy in my chest. "Dorian!" Sarah's voice pierced through the haze of my recollections. I glanced at her, and I saw something flicker in her eyes, a recognition, a shared fear, as if the memories of our childhoods were intertwining, linking us in this moment of terror. She had grown up in this area too, had heard the tales of the cursed beasts and the haunted swamps. Had she ever truly believed them? I shook off the memories and focused on the creature. It was twisting and distorting, its presence pulling at a thread deep within me that I had long buried. "We need to get out of here," Sarah urged, but the beast seemed to feed off our fear, growing larger, more formidable. But as I stepped back, something shifted in the air. The creature paused, its glowing eyes narrowing, as if it could sense the turmoil in our minds. What if it's not just an animal? I thought aloud, my breath quickening. What if it's a manifestation of our fears, of our pasts? Sarah's face turned ashen. "You mean like a spirit?" "I don't know," I replied, wrestling with the rising panic, "but it feels personal. It feels like it knows us." Just then the ground beneath us trembled, and the underbrush rustled violently. We turned to see a group of other rangers, our colleagues, emerging from the thicket, their faces shadowed by fear. They had been drawn to the commotion, but their presence only heightened the tension. One of them, Mark, who had always been skeptical of the supernatural, now looked sick with dread. "What's happening?" he demanded, eyeing the creature. "Is this real?" The creature's growl deepened, vibrating through the ground. And in that moment, I could see it was not just a threat. It was a reflection of our collective fears, a darkness that had been gathering strength. I felt the weight of my past pressing down on me, the guilt of decisions made, the traumas I had carried since childhood. "Maybe we're the ones who called it here," I muttered, horrified by the thought. What if our fear gave it power? The realization hit hard, and I saw the dawning comprehension on my colleagues' faces. This wasn't just about the creature, it was about us, our histories, the traumas we had buried deep in our hearts. In that moment of clarity, I understood that to confront this creature, we would have to confront ourselves. The Everglades were not merely a backdrop to our lives. They were intertwined with our very essence. As the creature advanced, we stood united but trembling, realizing the true nature of our battle. It was not just the beast we faced, but the most shadows within ourselves that we had long tried to escape. The night deepened, and I felt the weight of a greater truth pressing upon us, one that promised to unravel everything we thought we understood about the Everglades and ourselves. I stood, frozen, the creature looming before us, its eyes like twin lanterns guiding us through the abyss of our fears. I could feel the weight of my colleagues' anxiety pressing down on me, each heartbeat resonating with the primal energy that crackled in the air. This was it. The moment where legends met reality, where the past threatened to consume us whole. "Dorian, we have to move," Sarah shouted, snapping me back to the present. But my feet felt rooted to the ground, as if the swamp itself was claiming me. I could see Mark, his expression a mix of disbelief and terror, as he brandished a makeshift weapon, a thick branch he had grabbed on the way. "You really think that's going to help?" I barked, my voice tinged with frustration. I wanted to shake him out of his stupor, to make him see that we weren't just fighting a creature, we were fighting the very essence of our own fears. "Dorian, listen." Sarah's voice pierced through my swirling thoughts. "What if we confront it together? What if we face it as one?" The urgency in her tone ignited something within me, a flicker of hope, amid the encroaching darkness. But the creature lunged forward, and instinct kicked in. I raised the flashlight, its beam cutting through the murky air, illuminating the beast. For a split second, I thought I saw something familiar in its features, something that reminded me of my childhood nightmares. "No," I shouted, shaking my head violently. "You're not real. You're just a figment of our fears." As if responding to my defiance, the creature paused, its growl shifting to a low, almost mournful sound. I could feel the collective breath of my colleagues, the way they leaned in, drawn by the strange connection forming in that moment. It's feeding off our fear, I realized. We have to stand together, not just against it, but against what it represents. Mark stepped forward, his branch trembling in his grasp. "What do we do?" he asked, desperation creeping into his voice. I could see the walls he had built around his skepticism starting to crumble. "Face it head on. We need to confront our pasts, our fears, and stand united," I declared, my voice rising above the din of the creature's growl. "Let's remember why we came here, not just to protect the Everglades, but to understand them." The air thickened, with tension as we formed a circle, each of us holding hands. I could feel Sarah's grip tightening, her determination mingling with my own. We focused on the creature, our collective fears swirling around us like a storm. "We are more than our pasts," I shouted, feeling the words ignite a fire within me. "We are here, and we will not be consumed." The creature recoiled, its form flickering as if torn between this world and the next. For a heartbeat, I could see the shadows of our childhood fears reflected in its eyes. "Let it go," I urged, my voice trembling but resolute. "Let us go." In that moment, a wave, of understanding washed over me. The shadows we had carried were not our enemies. They were part of us, waiting to be acknowledged. I could sense the resolve in my colleagues, their fears merging with mine, creating a force that pushed against the creature's darkness. And then, as if sensing its imminent defeat, the creature howled, a sound both haunting and beautiful. I felt a surge of energy, a release of the burdens we had carried for far too long. But just as I thought we had triumphed, I caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of my eye. Mark, caught in the throes of his own fear, hesitated. I turned, fear gripping me anew. "Mark, don't!" But it was too late. He was already stepping back, the shadows pulling him away from us. The creature's eyes flickered, and I realized we were at the precipice of something far more profound than I had anticipated. The confrontation was just beginning. I felt a jolt of panic as I lunged for Mark, desperate to pull him back into our circle of unity. The air crackled with tension, and the creature's mournful howl echoed in my ears, a haunting reminder of what was at stake. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage as I reached for him, but the shadows inched closer, wrapping around his legs like tendrils of fear. "Mark!" I shouted, my voice strained with urgency. He looked back at me, eyes wide with an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. Fear, yes, but also something deeper, something that whispered of regret. I could see the battle waging within him, the pull of the creature's darkness versus the light of our connection. "Come back," Sarah cried, her voice trembling. "You're stronger than this." In that moment, Mark's grip on the branch faltered, and I seized the opportunity. I charged forward, my fingers grasping his wrist just as the shadows threatened to drag him under. With a burst of adrenaline, I pulled him back, and we stumbled together, falling to the ground as the creature's howl escalated into a piercing wail. The ground beneath us trembled, and the air shifted. The creature writhed, its form flickering and distorting as if caught between realms. My colleagues and I exchanged frantic glances, understanding dawning upon us. We couldn't just fight it. We had to accept it, to acknowledge the darkness each of us harbored. "Mark, face it," I urged him, forcing him to meet my gaze. "You can't let it take you." With a deep, shuddering breath, he nodded, and together we shouted, "We accept our fears." In that moment, a blinding light erupted from our circle, enveloping us in warmth. The creature recoiled, its form collapsing into a swirl of shadows that dissipated into the air like smoke. As the last remnants vanished, a profound silence fell over us, an eerie stillness that felt both liberating and unsettling. But the aftermath was not without scars. I felt a sharp pain in my side, a reminder of the physical toll the confrontation had taken. Mark's eyes were glazed, as if he had stepped back from a precipice but was forever changed by the experience. Sarah knelt beside him, her expression a mix of relief and concern, knowing that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges. "Are we safe now?" Mark asked, his voice a hoarse whisper. I wished I could assure him, but as I glanced around I saw the remnants of what had been. A swirling mist lingered in the air, and the swamp felt different, charged with an energy that was both familiar and terrifying. "Not entirely," I replied cautiously, my instincts flaring. "There's still something here, something we can't explain." As we gathered ourselves, I noticed a faint shimmer in the mist, shapes swirling just out of focus. My heart raced. Was it a trick of the light? Or was there something new emerging from the depths of the swamp? A new mystery waiting to unfold? Sarah's voice broke through my thoughts, her eyes scanning the horizon. "What now?" I took a deep breath, my mind racing with possibilities. "We need to find out what else this place holds. There's more to this story, and we can't walk away now, not after everything we've faced." And as we began to regroup, the shadows of the past still clinging to us, I couldn't shake the feeling that our journey was far from over. The swamp had awakened something within us, and I knew with certainty that we would have to confront it once more. The mystery was only just beginning. I stood there, my heart still racing, as the remnants of the creature flickered and faded into the mist. Mark and Sarah were beside me, their expressions a blend of relief and lingering dread. But as the echoes of our confrontation subsided, a new uncertainty began to creep in. The swamp, once a terrifying abyss, now felt alive with untold stories, secrets waiting to be unearthed. "What if this isn't over?" I murmured, half to myself, half to my companions. The shadows had receded, but something deep within me whispered that we had merely grazed the surface of a much darker truth. Mark shook his head, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought we defeated it. Isn't that enough?" Sarah's brow furrowed as she stared into the distance. "But what if it changes? What if it finds another way to reach us? We can't ignore the possibility." I felt a chill run down my spine, the weight of their words settling over me like a heavy fog. The air around us shimmered again, and I couldn't help but think we had unleashed something that would haunt us in ways we couldn't yet comprehend. As I looked between Mark and Sarah, I realized that the bond we had forged was fragile, tethered by the very fears we had just faced. And in the depths of the swamp, I felt a stirring, a dark promise that this encounter had merely set the stage for a far greater conflict ahead. "Maybe we should leave," Mark suggested. But even as he spoke, I knew deep down that escape was not an option. The swamp had claimed us, and its hold would not easily be relinquished. With a sense of foreboding, I took a step forward, drawn into the mist that still lingered. I could feel the shadows swirling around us, and I understood that this was not an end, but a beginning, a prelude to a deeper mystery that was yet to unfold. As we ventured further, uncertainty loomed larger than ever, a reminder that the past was never truly gone, and the future was a tapestry woven with threads of both light and darkness. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Share with your friends so they can also embark on this mystery-filled adventure. Leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story. My name is Raphael, and I often wonder if the forest remembers the secrets it keeps. On a stormy night in 1987, while making my rounds through the shadowy trails of the Appalachian National Forest, I stumbled upon something that few would dare to speak of. A group of travelers emerged from the darkness, their faces pale and their eyes vacant, as if they had witnessed horrors beyond comprehension. What transpired that night defied all logic. Muffled screams echoed through the trees, eerie lights blinked like distress signals, and an overwhelming sense of terror enveloped the campsite. Since that fateful evening, I have been convinced that the authorities wish to bury this incident in silence. And today, I am ready to unveil the truth they desperately want to keep hidden. As a native forest ranger, I have spent over 2 decades navigating the beauty and enigma of these woods. I've witnessed sunrises that paint the sky with hues of orange and purple, and I've listened to the whispers of the wind that seem to carry old tales. However, the events of that night in '87 irrevocably shifted my understanding of what lurks in the shadows of this place. Growing up in nearby Boone, I absorbed the folklore passed down through generations, stories of spirits and strange happenings, but I never imagined I would find myself at the center of a mystery so unsettling. Official reports were swept under the rug, and accounts of that night were minimized to nothing more than an unfortunate incident. Yet, every detail remains etched in my mind, every piece of evidence tucked away in the corners of my memory. Determined to unravel the truth, I began my own investigation, retracing the steps of the elusive travelers and sifting through the remnants they left behind. I discovered irregular footprints pressed into the mud, strange markings on the trees that seemed to tell a story of their own, and personal belongings abandoned without explanation. While the authorities reassured the public that nothing extraordinary had occurred, I felt a nagging certainty that a dark force was at play, hidden just beneath the surface of our everyday lives. My quest to expose the truth became more than a mere pursuit of justice. It morphed into a personal mission, one that put me at odds with those who sought to maintain the status quo, even if it meant confronting powerful and shadowy interests. The Appalachian National Forest, with its towering pines and the soft rustle of leaves, became a character in my story, its beauty masking the terror that lay beneath. The air was thick with tension, the silence punctuated only by the occasional hoot of an owl or the distant crack of thunder. Each step deeper into the woods felt like a descent into the unknown, where every shadow could conceal a truth waiting to be uncovered. Memories of my past, tinged with loss and regret, tugged at my heart as I navigated the familiar yet foreboding terrain. I had once been a carefree boy, exploring these very woods with friends, but the weight of that night loomed over me like a dark cloud, a constant reminder of the fragility of our reality. But when night fell, something inexplicable happened. As darkness enveloped the forest, I felt the familiar chill creeping up my spine, a lingering reminder of that night in '87. The trees loomed like silent sentinels, their branches clawing at the sky, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I had come prepared, armed with flashlights and a notepad to document my findings. But as I delved deeper, I realized that my fears were not entirely unfounded. The forest was alive with whispers, the rustling leaves seeming to call my name, urging me to turn back. But I pressed on, driven by an insatiable curiosity mixed with dread. Just as I reached a clearing, I heard voices, a conversation laced with urgency. I stepped cautiously forward, heart racing, and there they were, a group of 4 huddled around a flickering campfire. Their faces were illuminated by the flames, casting eerie shadows that danced upon the ground. I recognized one of them immediately, Maya, a local journalist known for her investigative reports on hidden truths. Her expression was grim, and I could tell she had been touched by the same darkness that haunted me. "Raphael," she called out, her tone a mix of relief and concern. I stepped into the light, feeling the warmth of the fire against my cold skin. "You shouldn't be here. It's dangerous." "Isn't that why we're all here?" I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "You're investigating the same incident, aren't you?" Maya nodded, her gaze darting toward the trees as if expecting them to come alive with the secrets they held. "I've been following leads. There's more to what happened that night than anyone is willing to admit. But we're not alone in this. There's someone else who wants to find the truth." As if summoned by her words, a figure emerged from the shadows, an older man with a weathered face and an intense gaze. "I'm Eli," he said, his voice gravelly and low. "I was one of the first responders that night. I've seen things in these woods that don't belong to this world." His declaration hung in the air, heavy with implications. Maya exchanged a worried glance with me, and I felt my skin prickle. "What do you mean?" I asked, leaning forward, desperate for answers. Eli took a deep breath, as if remembering the weight of his past. "The forest has a way of keeping its secrets. The lights you saw, those weren't just reflections. They're a warning. Something awakened that night, something that feeds on fear." His words sent a shiver down my spine. I had always dismissed the local folklore as mere superstition, but now, standing before Eli and Maya, I felt the foundations of my beliefs shifting. Before I could respond, the air around us thickened, and the fire sputtered ominously. Shadows flickered erratically, and the forest seemed to exhale, a low rumble echoing through the trees. My heart raced as I turned to the others. "Did you feel that?" Maya nodded grimly. "We have to stick together. Whatever is happening, it's not just a figment of our imagination anymore." As if in agreement, the wind picked up, carrying with it a low, mournful howl that seemed to emanate from the depths of the woods. It sent a wave of unease through me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being drawn into a web of dark forces. Eli's eyes narrowed, scanning the tree line. "We need to leave, now. The longer we stay, the more dangerous it becomes. The truth is out there, but so is the darkness." With urgency, we extinguished the fire and began gathering our things. the weight of our shared mission pressing down on us. Each of us carried our own fears and motives, but it was clear that we were bound by a common purpose. As I glanced back at the forest, I felt a surge of determination mixed with terror. The secrets of that night were beginning to surface, but I knew the path ahead would be fraught with peril. The forest had awakened, and it was hungry for more than just the truth. As we moved hastily through the underbrush, the chill of the night seeped deeper into my bones. My mind raced, replaying the stories I had heard about that night in '87, the lost children, the flickering lights, and the whispers that loomed like a shadow over the town. I had always dismissed it as mere folklore, but now, standing alongside Maya and Eli, I felt the weight of those tales pressing down on me, suffocating yet irresistible. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the trees, followed by an unnatural silence. I froze, heart pounding in my chest. "What was that?" I whispered, glancing around. Eli's expression hardened, and he strained to listen. "Stay close. We're not alone." Just then, a figure emerged from the darkness, tall and gaunt, with eyes that glowed like embers. My breath caught in my throat as recognition flooded over me. It was the face from my nightmares, a silhouette I had seen countless times in the Mai, fragments of my childhood memories. I stumbled back, my mind racing to connect the dots. "No, it can't be. Maya," I gasped, pointing. "Do you see it? That figure? It looks like..." "Like who?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Like my sister." The confession slipped from my lips before I could rein it in. Maya's eyes widened, and I could see the gears turning in her mind. "Your sister? The one who disappeared?" I nodded, the memories flooding back. Her laughter, her teasing, the day she had promised we would explore these woods together. That day hadn't ended in joy, it had marked the beginning of a nightmare that haunted my family. "I thought I was supposed to forget," I murmured, feeling the ground shift beneath me as the truth unfurled. The woods hadn't just taken my sister, they had woven her into their fabric, a part of the darkness that Eli spoke of. Eli watched me closely, and I could see the understanding in his eyes. "You're connected to this, that's why it's calling to you." Before I could respond, the glowing figure seemed to dissolve into the shadows, leaving behind an unsettling silence. But it wasn't just the figure that lingered, it was the realization that our lives were intertwined in ways I had never imagined. The darkness wasn't just a threat, it was a part of my history, and it was ready to reveal its secrets. A tremor of fear coursed through me. What if it's not just about finding the truth? What if it wants something from us, from me? Maya stepped closer, her voice firm. "We can't let fear dictate our actions. If there's a chance to uncover what happened, we have to take it, together." But as we pressed deeper into the forest, I could feel the air thickening around us, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They were no longer just rustling leaves, they were voices, echoing with my sister's laughter and the promise of forgotten memories. I clutched my notepad tightly, the weight of my discoveries pressing down on me. The truth was becoming clearer, yet it was also spiraling out of my control, threatening to consume me. Eli suddenly halted, his expression shifting from urgency to dread. "We need to turn back," he said, his voice a low rumble. "There's something ahead that shouldn't be disturbed." "Disturbed? What do you mean?" I asked, but before he could reply, a distant, echoing sound like a child's laughter cut through the forest, sending chills down my spine. It was a sound I recognized all too well, and I felt a pull, a desperate urge to follow it. But as I hesitated, a sense of foreboding washed over me. I realized with horror that the deeper we ventured, the more entangled we became in the very darkness we sought to expose. Something was waiting for us, and I could no longer tell where. The truth ended, and the horror began. This journey was no longer just about uncovering the past. It was about facing the demons that had haunted me for decades, and I feared that I might not be strong enough to confront them. As I stood on the precipice of the unknown, the echoes of laughter grew louder, wrapping around me like a shroud. My heart raced, caught between the instinct to flee and the desperate need to understand what lay ahead. I felt Maya's hand on my shoulder, grounding me as I fought against the rising tide of fear. "We can't just stand here," she urged, her voice steady despite the tremor in her eyes. "If that's your sister, don't you want to know what happened to her? But what if the truth was worse than I imagined?" The thought clawed at my insides. What if she's not just lost? What if she's trapped in there? I gestured toward the shadows that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Eli stepped forward, his expression resolute yet conflicted. "We can't let fear control us, but we need to be careful. The woods are alive, and they don't take kindly to intruders." His warning hung in the air, heavy with foreboding. At that moment, the air thickened with an oppressive energy, and the laughter morphed into something else, an echo of pain laced with a sinister undertone. I felt a shiver run down my spine, the realization dawning that whatever lay ahead was not just a remnant of my past, it was a living entity, a force that thrived on fear and sorrow. As we edged closer, the trees seemed to part, revealing a clearing bathed in an eerie, silvery light. It was then that I saw her, my sister, standing at the center, her form ethereal yet unmistakable. But she was not alone. Dark shapes writhed around her, their forms twisting in the shadows, their eyes glinting with malice. "No!" I shouted, instinctively stepping forward, but Maya grabbed my arm, pulling me back. "Don't! It's a trap!" But it was too late. The moment I took in my sister's gaze, so full of longing yet shadowed with fear, I felt an irresistible pull. I broke free from Maya's grip, my heart pounding as I stumbled into the clearing, the darkness swirling around me like a storm. "Please, come back." Maya's voice faded into the chaos, swallowed by the murmurs of the forest. I could barely hear Eli's frantic calls behind me, but it didn't matter. I had to reach her. "Is it really you?" I cried, tears streaming down my face. "I've missed you so much." My sister's lips parted, but the words that came forth were not her own. "You shouldn't have come here," the shadows whispered, a chorus of taunting voices. "You're not ready to know the truth." The ground trembled beneath my feet, and I felt a force pushing against me, drawing me further into the heart of the darkness. My sister's figure flickered, caught between the ethereal and the grotesque. I could see her mouth move, trying to speak, but her voice was drowned out by the cacophony of despair that filled the clearing. I was faced with a choice: to turn back and protect myself from the heart-wrenching truth, or to plunge headfirst into the abyss and confront the reality I had spent my life running from. The shadows lunged, and I felt a surge of adrenaline. I had come too far to back down now. "Stop!" I yelled, the word tearing from my throat. "I won't let you take her from me again." The darkness hesitated, and in that moment I felt the weight of all my fears and regrets collide with a fierce determination. This was my moment. I had to fight, not just for my sister, but for the countless others who had been lost. As I stepped further into the clearing, the shadows coiled around me, but I felt a flicker of light within, igniting. A resolve I never knew I had. The confrontation was just beginning, and I was ready to face whatever lay ahead. As I stepped deeper into the clearing, the shadows lunged at me, their tendrils brushing against my skin like icy fingers. The air crackled with energy, and I could feel the weight of the past pressing down on me. I braced myself, drawing on every ounce of strength I had left. "You won't take her," I shouted, my voice ringing out against the oppressive darkness. The shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned by my defiance. I charged forward, focused solely on my sister. She looked at me, her expression wavering between hope and despair, and for a fleeting moment I felt a connection, a flicker of the bond we once shared. But the darkness was relentless. It surged back, more furious now, a storm of anguish and fury that threatened to consume us both. I pushed through the chaos, reaching for her. As my fingers brushed against her arm, a jolt of energy coursed through me. The shadows screamed, a cacophony of rage and pain. I felt them clawing at my mind, trying to pull me under, but I held on tight, grounding myself in the love I had for my sister. "I'm here," I cried. "I won't let you go." In that moment, something shifted. The shadows began to retract, their grip loosening as a blinding light enveloped us. I shielded my eyes, and when I looked again, the darkness had dissipated, leaving only a shimmering mist in its wake. My sister stood before me, her form solidifying, no longer tethered to the darkness. "Thank you," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. But even as I embraced her, a cold dread settled in my stomach. I could feel the remnants of the shadows clawing at the edges of my mind, whispering sinister truths that I wasn't ready to hear. Behind us, Maya and Eli stumbled into the clearing, their expressions a mix of relief and horror. "We thought we lost you," Maya gasped, rushing to my side. But as I looked around, I noticed the trees shifting again, their branches twisting unnaturally. They were still alive, still watching. Eli's gaze darted to the remnants of the mist. "What just happened?" he asked, his voice tense. "Is it over?" "I don't know," I admitted, breathless. My heart raced, not just from the confrontation, but from the gnawing realization that, although we had survived, the forest still held secrets. The laughter echoed faintly, a haunting reminder that the darkness wasn't completely vanquished. As we began to retreat, I felt a sharp pain in my chest, a reminder of the emotional scars I would carry. My sister, now free but visibly shaken, looked back at me, her eyes filled with worry. "What if they come back?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I won't let them," I vowed. But deep down, I knew the shadows had merely retreated for now. The forest was a living entity, and it would not be so easily dismissed. The path behind us twisted unnaturally, as if the woods were reshaping themselves. Maya and Eli exchanged glances, both aware that we had only scratched the surface of something far more profound. As we moved away, a chill ran through me. I glanced back at the clearing, knowing that the echoes of the past would linger. The shadows may have been pushed back, but they were not gone. And in their wake, new mysteries stirred, secrets waiting to be uncovered just beyond the veil of the familiar. "Let's go home," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But as we turned to leave, a rustling in the underbrush caught my attention. Something dark and formless shifted, a reminder that the forest was still very much alive, and the laughter had not faded completely. In that moment, I realized our journey was far from over. It was only just beginning, as we stepped cautiously. Through the warped underbrush, I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was watching us, its presence a palpable weight on my shoulders. My sister clung to my arm, her eyes darting nervously around us, while Maya and Eli flanked us, their expressions taut with anticipation. "Keep moving," I urged, but my voice faltered, the echo of the laughter still resonating in my mind. The shadows had receded, but not vanished. I felt them lurking, a smoldering ember of menace ready to ignite. Just as we reached the edge of the clearing, I heard it. A whisper, soft and sinister, curling around my thoughts. "You can't escape us." I stumbled, the words clawing at my sanity. I turned to my friends, but their faces were obscured by a thickening mist. The air thickened, and I knew we were at a crossroads. The forest had shifted again, forming a labyrinthine path that twisted into darkness. "What if we go back?" Maya suggested, her voice trembling. "We can try again, find a way to end this." "But what if that's what they want?" Eli added, his eyes wide with fear. I felt the weight of their uncertainty pressing down on me, and I realized that the shadows were not just a threat, they were a trap, pulling us into a cycle of despair. "Stay close," I commanded, my own nerves fraying as the mist coiled around us. The laughter grew louder, a taunting melody that echoed through the trees. I could feel it, an urge to surrender, to let the shadows envelop us. And then, in that moment of hesitation, I saw it. A flicker of movement in the darkness, something darker than the shadows themselves. My heart raced as I understood the truth. We were not just running from darkness, we were becoming part of it. "Run!" I shouted, but it was too late. The mist closed in, and as I felt the tendrils wrap around my mind, I realized that escape was an illusion. The path behind us twisted away, leaving us stranded in a realm where hope and despair danced as one. As the shadows began to reclaim their hold, I felt the cold embrace of inevitability. The forest had won, and I was left with the haunting knowledge that our escape had only drawn us deeper into the heart of darkness. Would we ever find our way back, or were we now mere echoes in the woods, forever wandering, forever lost? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Share with your friends so they can also embark on this mystery-filled adventure. Leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story. My name is Bastian. Have you ever felt a chill that seeps so deeply into your bones it alters your perception of reality? It was 3 a.m., and the world around me was cloaked in a thick, oppressive silence, typical of the twilight hours in the Great Smoky Mountains. As I patrolled the dense woods, I stumbled upon a sight so grotesque it felt like a scene torn from a fever dream. In a secluded clearing, a circle of blood formed on the forest floor, and at its heart lay an animal that resembled a dog, but its features were warped and grotesque, twisting the very essence of what I thought I knew about the natural world. My instincts screamed at me. This was no ordinary event. I've spent over 2 decades as a park ranger, safeguarding these woods, always respecting the unspoken laws of nature. I've seen my share of strange occurrences, from the eerie howls echoing through the valleys of Cades Cove to the unsettling whispers of the wind that carries the tales of those who wandered too far into the shadows. Yet, nothing prepared me for this. The image of that solitary creature, unnaturally still and surrounded by a macabre halo of crimson, shattered my understanding of the forest and its mysteries. I felt an unsettling urgency, a need to comprehend the secrets that lurked within this forsaken grove. Driven by an unshakable sense of dread, I began to investigate the scene. I knelt beside the strange animal, examining its features more closely. Its eyes, if they could still be called eyes, were unblinking and dark, as if they contained the void itself. I collected evidence, faint paw prints that twisted unnaturally, mingling with peculiar markings scratched into the earth. The air was thick with a tension that felt alive, as if the trees themselves were watching, holding their breath in anticipation. My mind wrestled with conflicting thoughts. Was this evidence of a rare mutation, a grotesque anomaly of nature? Or was it something more sinister, a manifestation of ancient dark forces that had slumbered beneath the roots of these ancient trees? As I ventured deeper into the investigation, I unearthed remnants of what appeared to be an ancient ritual. Twigs arranged in intricate patterns, symbols that felt both foreign and eerily familiar, whispered of forgotten rites that had taken place long before my time. The forest, with its towering oaks and winding trails, felt like a living entity, harboring secrets that echoed through the ages. Each step I took resonated with the weight of history, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was trespassing on sacred ground. But I wasn't just a ranger. I was a man haunted by my past. I recalled the stories my grandfather told me, tales of loss of those who ventured too far and never returned. I remembered the fear that gripped my heart as a child, the nights spent listening to the howling winds and imagining the horrors that lurked in the dark. Those fears had faded with time, replaced by an unwavering belief in the natural order of things. Yet now, as I stood amidst the evidence of something so profoundly unnatural, that childhood fear surged back, threatening to engulf me. The forest was no longer a sanctuary. It had become a labyrinth of uncertainty. I felt a pull towards the heart of the mystery, a drive to uncover the truth behind the grotesque tableau I had discovered. But as darkness enveloped the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was stirring in the depths of the forest, something that wanted to be found. And when night fell, something inexplicable happened. As the shadows deepened around me, I felt the temperature drop further, an unnatural chill that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. I took a step back from the grotesque scene, trying to collect my thoughts, but the eerie silence of the forest was shattered by a low growl that reverberated through the clearing. My heart raced. I wasn't alone. I turned slowly, scanning the tree line, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. That's when I saw her, Maya, a fellow ranger and my closest ally in the park's administration. She stood a few feet away, eyes wide with shock as she took in the sight of the blood-stained ground and the twisted creature that lay at its center. "Bastion!" she called out, her voice a sharp whisper, as if speaking too loudly might awaken. "Something in the woods. What have you found?" "Maya, this isn't just some injured animal. Something is very wrong here." My words tumbled out, laced with urgency. Her gaze flickered to the creature, then back to me. "You're scaring me. I thought this area was safe. I've never seen anything like this." "Neither have I admitted, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "But we need to be careful. I found strange markings nearby, symbols that look ancient, like something from folklore. This could be linked to those disappearances we've been investigating?" Maya nodded, but uncertainty clouded her features. "You mean the ones from the last 5 years? The park has its share of myths, but they've always been just that, stories. This feels different, Bastion." The tension in the air was palpable, each breath I took laced with apprehension. I could see her confidence wavering, and I felt a surge of responsibility to ground us both in reason. "We need to document this. We'll take photos, collect samples." Before I could finish, the growl came again, louder this time, sounding closer. I turned to face the sound, the flashlight beam trembling in my grip. "We need to move," I urged, but the moment was interrupted by a figure emerging from the shadows. An older man, his weathered face twisted with urgency. "Ranger!" he shouted, stumbling into the clearing, breathless and wild-eyed. "You shouldn't be here? This place is cursed." I recognized him as George, a local who often warned us about the forest's darker tales. "George, what are you doing out here?" "There are things that dwell in the woods, things that don't take kindly to intruders," he panted, glancing nervously at the clearing. "You've disturbed something that should have stayed buried." Maya glanced at me, fear evident in her eyes. "Bastion, we should listen to him." But I felt a mix of dread and determination. "We can't just turn back. We have to understand what's happening." George shook his head vehemently. "You don't understand. It's not just an animal. It's a sentinel, a guardian of this forest, and it's angry. You've unleashed something. We need to leave, now." The forest seemed to shift around us, the trees creaking as if they were drawing closer, feeding on our rising panic. My mind raced as I considered our options. I wanted to believe I could rationalize this, find a logical explanation, but the deeper I dug, the more reality slipped through my fingers like sand. Maya turned to me, her expression a mix of fear and defiance. "Bastion, if we leave now, we might never find out what happened. But if we stay, what if we're already too late?" The conflict surged within me, a tempest of duty and desire for truth. The forest had always been my home, but now it felt like a trap, each shadow a potential threat. I had to make a choice, and whatever I decided would alter the course of our lives forever. "Stay close," I finally replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "We'll uncover this mystery together, but we need to be smart. We can't let fear dictate our actions." As we prepared to venture deeper into the darkness, I felt eyes upon us, the forest itself holding its breath, waiting for our next move. And as the night deepened, I realized that whatever had awakened in the shadows, it was only just beginning to reveal itself. As we stepped deeper into the shadows, the weight of George's warning hung heavy in the air. The darkness seemed to thicken, pressing against my chest as if the forest itself were alive, breathing with a sinister intent. I flicked the flashlight around, the beam quivering as my hands trembled with uncertainty. Maya stayed close, her eyes darting nervously from tree to tree. "Bastion, are you sure about this?" she whispered, the fear in her voice gnawing at me. I nodded, forcing a calm I didn't feel. But the truth was, doubt gnawed at my mind. What if George was right? What if we had stirred something that should have remained undisturbed? As we moved, I felt a growing sense of disorientation. The path we had taken began to twist unnaturally, the trees bending as if they were deliberately leading us astray. I struggled to keep my bearings, memories from my past flooding into my mind, memories I had buried deep. When I was a boy, I had explored this very forest with my father, a ranger like me. We had stumbled upon a hidden grove, a sacred place, he called it. But my father's tales had always hinted at darkness, things lying in wait, the forest's guardians watching over ancient secrets. One day, we had ventured too far, and he had come back changed. He never spoke of what happened, but I could see it in his eyes, a fear that twisted his soul. "Bastion!" Maya's voice cut through my reverie, pulling me back to the present. She was pointing toward something on the ground, a series of strange footprints, deep and elongated, leading away from the grotesque creature. "Do you see that?" she asked, breathless. "We're not alone. Something else was here." Before I could respond, a rustling erupted from the underbrush, and I swung the flashlight towards the sound, heart pounding in my chest. Out of the shadows emerged a creature, unlike anything I had ever seen, a hybrid of man and beast, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "Maya, get back!" I shouted, instinctively putting myself between her and the creature. But just as the beast advanced, a sudden, blinding flash illuminated the clearing. I shielded my eyes, and when I looked again, the creature had vanished, leaving only a lingering chill in the air. "What just happened?" Maya gasped, her voice trembling. "I don't know," I admitted, my mind racing. "But this isn't just folklore, it's real, and it's tied to my past. My father, he knew something. Maybe he was trying to warn me." As I spoke, George stepped forward, his expression grave. "You don't understand, Ranger. This is more than just a creature. It's a manifestation of the forest's anger, and it senses your connection to it." I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, and the realization hit me. My past was not just a memory, it was a thread weaving through this unfolding nightmare. The forest wasn't just alive, it was aware of me, and I had unknowingly reignited a long-buried conflict. "Bastion, we need to leave," Maya urged, her voice rising with urgency. But the shadows around us seemed to darken, and I knew we were far from done. "We can't leave now," I replied, my voice steady, though my heart raced. "I need to understand what's happening. If this is tied to my father, then I can't walk away." And as I spoke those words, I felt the weight of my past drawing me deeper into the mystery, the forest whispering secrets that had been lost for years. Whatever was unfolding here, I had no choice but to confront it. The darkness was calling, and I was ready to answer. The air crackled with tension as I took a step forward, the shadows swirling around me like phantom tendrils. Maya's hand gripped my arm, but I shrugged her off, focusing instead on the darkness ahead. I could feel it. The forest was alive, pulsing with a rhythm that mirrored my own racing heartbeat. "Bastion, please," Maya pleaded, her voice a desperate whisper. "We need to go. This isn't just about you anymore." But I couldn't let it go. The weight of my father's legacy pressed on my shoulders, a burden I had borne for too long. The creature was a part of that legacy, an echo of his unfinished story. I needed answers, and the forest was the only place I could find them. "Stay close," I said, my voice low but resolute. The flashlight beam flickered as I moved further into the gloom, Maya hesitating only for a moment before following. As we advanced, the ground beneath us began to tremble, and the trees around us swayed as if in a silent dance. George's warning echoed in my mind, but I shook it off. Fear had no place in this moment. Then, from the depths of the shadows, a figure emerged. George, his face pale and drawn. "You shouldn't have come here," he shouted, his voice strained. "You don't know what you're awakening." "Awakening?" I echoed, frustration bubbling within me. "What do you know that I don't?" "Everything." He took a step closer, urgency etched into his features. The forest is a living entity, and it's angry. It remembers your father, Bastian. It remembers the trespass. Before I could respond, a guttural growl erupted from the darkness behind George, and I felt my breath catch in my throat. The creature materialized again, eyes glowing fiercely, its form more defined now, muscles rippling beneath its fur. "Get back!" I shouted, my instincts kicking in, but George didn't move. "You have to confront it, Bastian. It won't stop until you acknowledge the past." I hesitated, caught between the primal fear coursing through me and the need to face the truth. The creature lunged, and I instinctively reached for Maya, pulling her behind me. "Stay behind me!" I yelled as the beast drew nearer, its breath hot and fetid. In that moment, I realized that this confrontation wasn't just physical. It was a reckoning. I was fighting not only for my life, but for my father's memory. "I know who I am," I shouted, my voice rising above the creature's growls, "and I won't let you take me down." The creature paused, its glowing eyes locking onto mine, as if weighing my resolve. The air crackled with electric tension, and I felt a rush of clarity. I wasn't just my father's son, I was a guardian of the forest, too. In that heartbeat, I understood that my choice held the power to either break the cycle of fear or plunge us deeper into darkness. I took a step forward, ready to confront not just the beast, but the shadows of my past. "Show me," I cried, determination surging within me. "Show me what you want." And as I stood my ground, the forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the moment that would change everything. The moment hung in the air, thick with anticipation. I stared into the creature's eyes, feeling the weight of generations pressing down on me. The forest was silent, as if holding its breath with me. Then, with a sudden jarring motion, the creature lunged, but I stood my ground, my heart pounding in my chest. In a flash, a surge of energy coursed through me, connecting me with the very essence of the forest. I felt the whispers of the trees, the rustling of leaves, and the heartbeat of the earth beneath my feet. I raised my hand, palm out, willing the creature to halt. To my surprise, it skidded to a stop, its growls transforming into something softer, more like a mournful howl. "Show me!" I shouted again, my voice a raw mixture of fear and defiance. With a powerful shudder, the creature shifted before me, its form dissolving into shadows that danced around us. I could see flashes of memories, my father's face, the glint of his eyes filled with regret, moments of joy interspersed with pain. The forest was revealing its story, intertwined with mine. I felt its sadness, its anger, and its longing for resolution. Suddenly, the shadows reached for Maya, curling around her like tendrils of fog. I turned, panic rising in my throat. "Maya!" I called out, but she stood transfixed, her eyes wide, with terror and understanding. "Bastian," she whispered, "it's showing us. We're part of this." Before I could respond, the shadow surged forward, enveloping us both. I felt a jolt, a rush of images flooding my mind, visions of my father's mistakes, the creature he had once tried to control, and the price we had, all paid. But as the darkness threatened to consume me, a blinding light erupted from within, pushing back the shadows. I woke up on the forest floor, gasping for breath, the weight of the creature's presence still lingering in the air. My body ached, but I was alive. I looked around, finding George kneeling beside me, relief flooding his features. "You did it," he exclaimed, but his voice was strained. "You faced it. You faced your past." Maya was beside me, her face pale but resolute. "But it's not over, Bastian. It's still here, lurking in the shadows. We only managed to appease it for now." I nodded, the truth settling heavily in my chest. The confrontation had brought clarity, but it also left scars, both physical and emotional. I could feel the remnants of the creature's power in my veins, a constant reminder of what I'd faced. "What about the forest?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "What happens next?" George looked at me, eyes filled with worry. "The forest will heal, but it will take time. It remembers your father, and it won't forget the pain he caused." As we gathered ourselves, I noticed something glinting in the underbrush, a small, ornate locket half buried in the dirt. I reached for it, the cool metal sending a shiver through me. Inside was a faded photograph of my father with a woman I didn't recognize. "Maya, do you see this?" I held it out to her, my heart racing. "I think it's a clue," she said, eyes widening. "There's more to discover." As the shadows receded and the forest began to breathe again, I realized our journey was far from over. The confrontation had merely scratched the surface of a deeper mystery, one that tied my father's past to my own fate. With a shared look of determination, we prepared to delve into the unknown, knowing that the forest still held secrets waiting to be unveiled. The locket felt heavy in my palm, a tangible link to my father's past and the secrets that had twisted through the roots of our family like the gnarled branches overhead. Maya and George stood close, their faces etched with concern, but I could sense a fire igniting within me, a determination to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. "What do we do now?" George asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, the forest air thick with promise and danger. "We follow the clues. Whatever this is, whatever my father did, it's tied to us, to me." But as we began to move, the ground trembled beneath us, a low growl echoing in the distance, reminding me that the creature was not yet vanquished. I could feel its presence lurking, waiting for an opportunity to strike again. "Maya, are you ready?" I asked, though uncertainty gnawed at my insides. She nodded, though her eyes betrayed her fear. We pressed onward, deeper into the heart of the forest, branches clawing at us as if trying to pull us back. The shadows shifted, flickering, with the remnants of the creature's power, and I knew we were racing against time. Each step felt heavier, the air thickening with the weight of unseen eyes watching us. Then, just as we reached a clearing, a chilling howl pierced the silence. The shadows coalesced, forming the creature once more, but this time it was larger, more menacing, its eyes burning with a hunger for vengeance. "We must choose," Maya said, her voice trembling. "Fight or flee?" I glanced at my friends, the gravity of the moment crashing down on me. We faced a terrifying uncertainty, caught between the past and our future, the creature's malevolence threatening to swallow us whole. In that instant, I knew that whatever path we chose would seal our fates, forever entwined with the forest's dark legacy. "Together," I breathed, but deep within, a nagging doubt lingered. Were we truly ready to confront the shadows, or would we become lost in them just as my father had? As the creature lunged, I felt the world tilt and everything faded to black. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Share with your friends so they can also embark on this mystery-filled adventure. Leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story.